say, kids, what time is it? It's Long Riders Radio time. Coming up with this week's guest, Ira Agins. Support for Long Riders Radio comes from DiscountRamps.com. DiscountRamps.com offers a huge selection of power sports products for your ATV, UTV, motorcycle, and more. Everything you need to load, haul, or transport your power sports toys. Long Riders Radio listeners can save 15% off their order by using coupon code LONG. That's LONG at DiscountRamps.com. Well, hey there everyone, Justin here. Hope you're having a good Thanksgiving weekend, and hope you had a good Thanksgiving with your family and friends and whoever else you chose to spend it with. Today's episode, we're going to talk with Ira Agins, who I wouldn't go so far as to say legend, because he probably wouldn't like that, but I'll go with fixture of many, many long-distance rallies, and really cool guy, and somebody I've had on the list of people I want to talk to on this show for quite a while, and he's done a lot for all of us to kind of behind the scenes of making sure that these events run well. And so anyway, without further ado, let's talk to Ira, and happy Thanksgiving. Well, on the line today, we are talking to someone who is an Iron Butt Rally finisher, and someone who I'm pretty sure you've at least heard of if you've been at all paying attention to the IBA forums or the LD rider lists, or if you've been at all involved with an Iron Butt Rally. Like I said, he's an Iron Butt Rally finisher, and dare I say, a fixture at the IBR. Mr. Ira Agins, welcome to Long Riders Radio.
Thanks, Justin. Nice to be here.
You want to start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been riding since I was about 15 when we rolled my friend Chuck's dad's R69S out of the shed at 2 o'clock in the morning and started going for joyrides. And, you know, motorcycling either sucks you up or it spits you out, and it just sucked me up big time. So nice. I've been riding basically ever since. I have only a moderate number of miles, I figure around 750,000, which in the context of the Iron Butt Association is being a slacker more than anything else.
750,000 miles? That's not anything to be ashamed of. So you have, like I said, every time I've been to an Iron Butt rally, you are there. I've been to 2 of them, so that's not really saying a whole lot. But as we were getting ready for the show here, we were talking about how many Iron Butt rallies have you been involved in, either as a rider or as a worker?
I started off doing some bonus scouting for the 1997 Iron Butt rally. I rode and finished in 99, which is my only Iron Butt rally that I rode in. And I've worked every Iron Butt rally since. So wow. However many that is, 12 or 13 or something like that.
So you were smart enough to just do it once and then start working it.
Well, there were a couple of reasons why I only did it once. And, you know, every Iron Butt rally finisher has their own reason to either hang it up after 1 or do 5 or 6. And mine was that simply, number one, I saw it as a challenge. When I did the 99 Iron Butt rally, like most people, had no idea whether or not I could actually be a finisher. I learned a lot about that during the rally, and I was a finisher. And I thought it was such a fantastic experience that I thought it would be a little bit selfish to apply for a second one. There are so many people out there who really would love nothing but to be on that start line, that doing it twice, like I say, I thought it was greedy. I had proven everything I needed to prove to myself, and now it's time to let others do it.
So, I mean, you've been involved with, almost from the start of the Iron Butt rallies. What do you see as one of the biggest changes that's come about, and how the rallies run, how people are running the rally, things like that?
Well, in the early days of the rally, um, up until probably 2003. The rally was much more of a brute force exercise. It was more twist this. It was more twisting the throttle than using your head.
Hmm.
And, be, basically, people would just go out and run insane number of miles because when you looked at the rally book, the big bonuses were pretty obvious. So whoever got the most big bonuses basically
Yeah.
was going to win. So you saw people doing, 13,000 miles in 11 days, which is
Wow.
a lot of
That's a
miles.
haul.
That's a haul. And so around 2003 or so, the rally changed to the point where people needed to do a lot more thinking than twisting the throttle. I mean, to be a winner, you need both. But
Hmm.
the real name of the game now is points per mile. It's
Yeah.
not the total number of miles. And in fact, in almost every case, the person who has the most miles did not win. I think in the
Yeah.
last Iron Butt rally, Wendy Crockett was the winner, and I'd have to look at the numbers again, but I think she had something like the fifth most miles. So, you still need to put the miles on to be in the top 10, but it's the rider who can do the best thinking to do the best selection of bonuses that ends up at the top of the heap. So
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest um, change that's gone on over the years. And in fact, some earlier Iron Butt Rally winners have admitted to me, at least in private, that if they were to enter the rally today, they probably would not do as well simply because their forte was sitting here and twisting that and
Yeah.
not getting off the bike.
So if I could go back in time to January of 1999 and talk to you and tell you about what the Iron Butt and give you a very detailed explanation of what the Iron Butt Rally is like in 2000, what the 2021 Iron Butt Rally will be like. And you can have all the equipment you need. Just we'll pick you up and set you down on a bike. Would you do it?
If I were in the same physical condition as I were in 1999, I'd give it a shot. Sure.
Yeah. What would you think?
Absolutely.
Would you rather do it in 1999 or rather do it in with the current stuff?
Well, I think, I'm a fan of simpler times.
Fair enough.
But on the other hand, we see people now in the top 10 who don't have that many miles,
Yeah.
but, can think like crazy. It's interesting to note that several of the top riders now tend to be airline pilots
Hmm.
or fighter pilots
Yeah.
or people who have to, make decisions that are meaningful at the moment
Yeah.
and are able to work problems. And so a lot of it has a lot more to do with problem solving than it used to by far.
That's it's funny you mentioned that because that's one of the things that I've noticed with talking with people on this podcast is that the if you had to look at a profession or at least profession slash hobby that is significantly overrepresented in long distance motorcycling, it's people who are pilots. And I mean, I'm pilot. I'm not current, but pilot. And I think it's just I don't know if it's the way it's if it's the training you get of how to think or if it's that's just the type of person who it attracts type thing. But it's definitely something I've noticed too. So I mean, obviously with people like Jim Owen and whatnot. And
Exactly so. The other reason why I think you know things have changed over time is basically technology and the available
yeah,
technology. Back in '99, I had a street pilot, a Garmin street pilot, that basically just could route point to point. So
Mm,
it didn't give you correct miles or anything like that unless you were really, hip to some program that would actually put you on the road. But the first GPSs just gave you an arrow, go
yeah.
that way
Go that
for,
direction.
yeah, for 800 miles. But
For,
it didn't
or
really
half a
tell you,
continent.
yeah, I mean, it didn't tell you what roads to use or anything like that. The advent of a lot of other technologies that are planning tools now, like routing, map routing, that makes a huge difference. Now, I remember Rick Morrison, who was the, I believe, 1997 Iron Butt Rally winner, um, did well because he personally had ridden all over the North America, all over the US, all
Mm,
over Canada. And so if there was some bonus location out in the middle of nowhere, there was a good chance that Rick had either been there or had been in the neighborhood and was therefore aware of road conditions and weather
yeah.
conditions and that sort of thing. Rick famously would estimate mileage by pulling out a paper map and using the filter on a cigarette to measure how many miles on the map. I think a filter on a Marlboro is something like 500 miles or 100 miles.
Oh,
I
that's
forget what it was,
great.
but anyway, and of course Rick also had a real facility to see pretty deeply into the bonus books, so he had a real feel for which bonuses to go for and which not.
Mm,
So, nowadays you don't have to have that kind of intimate personal knowledge of every road in North America.
yeah.
You just have to have, whatever the latest and greatest routing tool is to tell you which roads to take and where. You still have to use intelligence to stay off the cow paths, but it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be, a lot easier.
So in our another thing in our pre interview that you mentioned is in regard to the IBR is that you just kind of do what you're told. So what is it that you're told during the IBR? Because I every IBR I've been to, you're doing a lot of stuff. It seems like you're either doing a live stream, you're helping out with all sorts of stuff with inspections and whatnot. So what are you told to do?
Well, the live stream had nothing to do with the IBR. That was just something that I was doing on a personal basis.
Yeah.
Um, but first, the IBR is basically run by Lisa Landry and Mike, and whoever the route master is that particular year. Last time and this time it's Jeff Earls. In the past, it's been people like Tom Austin. So they are the leaders of the pack. Those are the alphas in the Iron Butt Rally. The rest of us are basically worker bees. So for several years, I was the person who stopped and started the clocks for the legs and for the rally
Mm,
and checked riders in at the checkpoints and helped Mike with the scoring. Now, since Tom Austin had put together a really first class um, computer based system for scoring that has been uh, updated over the years. Those functions are no longer really required. So for the last couple of Iron Butt rallies, my official function has been uh, working with the photographs.
mm,
In the weekend prior to the start, um, I work with a team to check the cameras, check the memory cards in the cameras, set the cameras up for the riders, and then at the checkpoints, I also worked uh, in copying the photos, making sure there weren't extraneous photos, that sort of thing. So that's what I've been doing. But of course, there are a lot of miscellaneous tasks that need to be done during an iron butt rally, and I think over the years, for some reason, riders who finished in 1999, 97, 2001 today tend to be the people who are the
Hmm.
core staff of
Yeah.
the Iron Butt Rally. I don't know. For me, I work it because the Iron Butt Association and the Iron Butt Rally has given so much to me in enriching my life that I feel like I want to give back something. Like I told Mike a long time ago, the Iron Butt Association is my favorite charity. So I do, and the same thing goes for the Iron Butt Rally, which is really a separate entity from the Iron Butt Association. And Lisa Landry, who's been running it since 2003, was a 2001 finisher. Um, People like Dennis Bittner, Tom Austin, John Ferber, a whole bunch of people who are Iron Butt Rally finishers from those years are basically the same people at every Iron Butt Rally working the staff. And of course, the
Hmm.
advantage to that is that you don't have to tell folks what to do if they've been doing the same job
Yeah.
for the last five Iron Butt rallies. It's more like asking Lisa which room to set up in and whether
Yeah.
we have enough extension cords and that sort of thing. But in terms of the actual activity that occurs in that furious weekend before the Monday start, pretty much everybody knows, what their job is and how to do it.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
makes running it very smooth.
it's a great segue into my next question because it was going to be so like there's always the big fanfare of the start and the checkpoints and the finish, but I want to talk about kind of what happens at all the other times during that rally. So you mentioned the weekend before the start. Talk a little bit about that and what's going on then.
Well, it's a huge amount of activity starting basically the Friday before the Monday start. The start is traditionally on a Monday at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. because Mike likes to sleep in, so he didn't want the start too early.
I
Anyway,
appreciate that.
yeah. So uh, during that weekend, there are several activities that take place. We do odometer checks because we want accurate odometer information at the end. So we need to calibrate odometers. So every rider needs to go on a fixed odometer course that's a few miles long so we can get the calibration factors for when we read their odometers at the checkpoints and at the finish. There's also, I won't call it exactly a technical inspection, but we take a look over the motorcycles to make sure that it's not leaking fluids or
Yep.
things are falling off and that sort of thing. We do have some rules regarding how fuel cells, for example, need to be
Hmm.
mounted and vented and stuff like that. We have rules against advertising on bikes. These are not Grand Prix, you know,
Hmm.
bikes. So, and this is an amateur event, one of the world's last great amateur events, as far as I'm concerned. And so we want to, really not be an advertising platform. We also have regulations in that same vein in terms of outside assistance. So you can't have a factory team following you around the country and replacing engines as needed. Although we did do that when one rider was riding a Ural in the hopeless class one year and had to replace the
As
engine twice.
as was described on Long Riders episode number something. I can't remember what it is,
Yeah.
which I will
So
link to up here.
we have a lot of rules against outside assistance. Anyway, back to the weekend. So there are those sorts of things, as well as checking licenses, registrations, making sure that VIN numbers on the motorcycles match the registration uh, VIN numbers and things like that, making sure that people's licenses haven't expired and the plates haven't expired and
Yeah,
so forth and so on. And even more paperwork in terms of making sure that riders know that motorcycling just generally is a dangerous endeavor. Being on a motorcycle for 11 days doesn't lessen the danger at all. So we
yeah,
want to make sure that they understand that and that they have adequate insurance, that they have um, uh, 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 ways to uh, send out emergency messages via Spot or some other satellite system. Uh, and, in general, know that there's a significant risk involved in motorcycling and in the Iron Butt Rally. 11 days on the road um, could present even more risk. Although at this
yeah.
point, I need to mention that the Iron Butt Rally itself has a phenomenal safety record if you consider the total number of miles that have been ridden
Yeah.
over the years.
I think if there's one thing that gets hammered into your head as a rider, it's safety. I mean, it's that you are doing something like you said. I think the way you put it is very good. It's you're doing something that's very risky, and you need to basically be doubling down on safety. And it stuck with me when I was doing. I mean, like, do I really want to be doing this, or I need to get off this road right now? Type decisions that are going through your mind.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the things that we've instituted in the Iron Butt Rally, for the last several, is rest periods,
Mm-hmm.
bonuses. So
Yeah.
you can get points for standing still. And that is a real treat when it comes to the Iron Butt Rally. Normally, you're in constant motion in order to get points. So if you can rest for a few hours and still get points for doing so, well,
Yeah.
that's a real carrot to do that and not be out on the
It's a big
road.
carrot.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a big carrot. Those points are more than you're gonna get by going to any bonus that you could possibly think of.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So okay, so we've gotten now we're the start has happened. Warchild's done this a whole bunch of times. There's kind of like, okay, everyone's gone. Now what happens?
We go to the bar.
At 10:30.
10:30, 10:45, I don't care because it's been so intense. I mean, some of the
Yeah.
other activities that happen is um, the night before the start, there's the starters banquet. And in addition to everything that Lisa and Mike will say, the highlight of the evening is that when the banquet is finished, all the riders get the rally book and the first legs bonuses.
Yeah.
For experienced riders, they just take that packet and go back to their room and immediately start the bonus procedures, which ones to go to. We also provide rookies an opportunity to just sit in the banquet hall with their bonus pack and ask a few of the senior staff questions.
Mm-hmm.
And, that at least gives them some sense of what they need to be doing at this point because not all Iron Butt Rally entrants are seasoned, experienced ralliers. And there's a huge difference between being able to simply ride the wheels off a motorcycle and rallying. As I said, you
Yeah.
need to use the brains as well as the the right wrist. And if there's any deficiency in many of the rookies, it's the fact that they do not have that rally experience. You know, when you show up at the Iron Butt rally, ideally, you should have done enough 24-hour or multi-day rallies to have in your own head procedures for analyzing the rally pack, or where you're going to stick your rally flag, or when you pull into a gas station, you know, by day 9, you know, you're standing in a gas station with the pump in one hand and a plastic sandwich in the other, and you're not sure which goes in the tank and which goes in your mouth. So at that point, there are a lot of things that you want to be able to do on autopilot, like
Yeah.
filling the tank, doing whatever you need to do, whether it's to take a picture or note mileage or whatever, and just let it flow, so you can either think about other things or not have to
Yeah.
think about anything for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
The rest of the time between the start and the first checkpoint, um, we're basically reviewing how the weekend went and how the start went. Um, all the participants have satellite locators on their bikes, so some of the staff are monitoring the satellite locators for a couple of things. Number one, we're interested to see where people are going. You know,
So
especially
you've got the
people
best
like
view.
especially people like Jeff, because he knows before the start, you know, probably where you need to go to do well, and you know
Yeah.
what are sucker bonuses, right? Helpful hint: don't go to Key West on leg 1.
What you could have done it on, like, well, was that on leg 1 this last? It was on leg 1 this last one. It was doable. People did it.
Sure, but not the winners.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so we're doing that, and it depends upon how much time there is between the start and the checkpoint in terms of how quickly we need to pack up to get to the next checkpoint.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the start and the first checkpoint are in the same place, so we don't have to go anywhere. Those tend to be short legs. Not every leg is identical in length. And back at the beginning of the Iron Butt Rally in the 80s, it was more of a four corners ride. Nowadays, it's not. Back
Yeah.
then, it was a question of hitting checkpoints and within the time frames and getting to the finish within the time frame. That's why in the first Iron Butt Rally, it was a four-way tie for first. In more modern Iron Butt rallies, we have checkpoints scattered all over the country. And so we could have, you know, a leg that's only 2 days long at the beginning, say, and then have one that's 5 days long at some other point. So depending upon how much time there is between the start and the checkpoint, or between checkpoints, or the checkpoint and the finish, it determines how quickly we need to get on an airplane and go wherever
Yeah.
we're going.
Well, like 2019, you flew across the country basically to
Pretty
get to
much.
Kennewick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, it just depends. And then, of course, we need to break everything down, get it to where we're going, set it all up before the riders show up. And
Yeah.
then there's also the local staff at the checkpoints and things like that that you need to coordinate.
So without getting anyone into trouble or yourself into trouble, what is something that most people probably wouldn't know about the IBR? I mean, the kind of behind the scenes thing. Is there something out there that's like, most people wouldn't know this?
I don't know if it's very surprising, but for the 11 days that an Iron Butt rally runs, Lisa Landry does not get any sleep. I
Yeah.
remember, I think it was 2003, the first year that she was running it, or maybe it was 2005. She showed me how many phone calls she had received, mainly from riders, during that
Yeah.
11 days. And dozens or scores or hundreds. And so she's doing a lot of work behind the scenes with riders who call in to say, I can't find this bonus, or it's changed, or the road is closed, or there's been an avalanche, or whatever is going on. And so she's kept like super busy all the time. The rest of us worker bees are just, setting up for the next checkpoint or breaking it down and getting ready
Yeah.
to get on a plane kind of thing. So she's under, a particular amount of stress for the 11 days or more of this rally. And that's something that's somewhat underappreciated.
Yeah.
Another thing is people fail to understand the tremendous amount of work that goes into staging an Iron Butt rally. People like Jeff Earls have been working on the rally design since the last rally. So he's
Yeah.
been putting in a year. We tend to want to actually check each and every bonus at least once before the rally, to have somebody physically go to that bonus to make sure that it's still there, that it hasn't
Mm-hmm.
burned down or they moved it 6 blocks, which has happened in the past. And in a typical iron butt rally, we may have 300 bonuses.
Yeah.
So that takes a pretty small army, for the time before the rally. Like I say, the first work that I did for the Iron Butt Rally is scouting bonus locations in 1990 for the 1997
Hmm.
rally, and so there's a huge amount of work. And of course, when it comes to what Lisa needs to do, we may have an idea to have the start and finish in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But it's up to Lisa to figure out what hotel has the right combination of
Yeah.
facilities for us to hold it there. Not every place can accommodate, 100 or 110 riders, plus all the staff, plus all the relatives and spectators and that
And a
sort of
parking lot
thing.
that could deal with it.
And a parking lot. People need to park a trailer there for two
Yeah.
weeks, that kind of thing. So there's
What
an underappreciation of the amount of work in total that goes into an iron butt
yeah.
rally, I think.
What is one of your favorite memories? I mean, you've been involved with the Iron Butt Rally for quite a while, as we've been talking about. What's one of your favorite memories? What sticks out for you?
Well, in 99, there were a couple. One was I was in a gas station in Texas at about 11 o'clock at night putting gas in the bike when it's a convenience store and gas station. So out of the convenience store came this woman, probably mid 20s, with a little, maybe 6 or 7 year old daughter. And as I'm getting my gear back on, they approach me, and the mother says to me, my daughter just wanted to come over and have me tell you that she thinks that you have a very pretty motorcycle.
Oh,
And that's when I got down on one knee and I said to her, the little girl that is, thank you very much. And I hope someday you have a pretty motorcycle too. And her eyes just got really big. Like
oh,
this
how
was the
cool!
first time that somebody had even suggested that a girl could ride a motorcycle. And so that was a really kind of cool moment. The other interesting moment in the 99 Iron Butt Rally is one of the bonuses was Niagara Falls. So Joe Denton and I and a couple of other people go to that bonus. It was American Falls. This is back in the days when we were using Polaroid cameras, not digital cameras. And the instructions were go to American Falls between these hours and take a picture of the falls. And when the picture doesn't come out because it's the middle of the night and there's no light on the falls, go to the entrance and take a picture of the lighted entrance, a sign to the walk that goes down to the overlook. So we did that, and we had to turn in both pictures, the Polaroid picture that was totally
The
black
black.
and the picture of the sign. And then we had a little bit of time, so we decided to take a little nap. Now, right outside at the parking lot, there was nobody there. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. So we decided to just kind of lay down on the sidewalk for 15 or 20 minutes and take a little nap. And I'm laying there in my full stitch, helmet on, right next to my motorcycle, when out of nowhere comes a family. It's mom and dad and sis and bud, and they're just walking down the sidewalk at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sort of dozing off, and I hear them talk about how these poor American motorcyclists, have to sleep in the park. Well, I have a $12,000 motorcycle. At the time, that's what K1100 LTs ran. And I was wearing about $1,000 worth of protective gear. And I'm this poor American motorcyclist. So I thought that was kind of amusing. The thing is that, during an iron butt rally, all riders have some magic moment. It could
Yeah.
be stopping the bike in the middle of the desert in the middle of the night and just looking up at the Milky Way. It
Hmm.
could be trying to catch a ferry um, and just barely making it. These are the things that stick with you as an iron butt rally finisher
Yeah.
for your entire life. And the camaraderie, it's like being in combat in a platoon. There are things that everybody in the platoon shares that nobody outside the platoon will ever really understand at a gut
Yeah.
level.
I can't thank Jeff Rolls enough for including Skookumchuck Rapids on the on the bonus list last time, because I mean it's somewhere I could easily ride to right now. I mean it's be a a weekend ride up and back, but just getting up and seeing that on the bonus list, like, yep, that's where I'm going. And as soon as we were able to go, heading out, and I had one of those ferry moments where I was the last vehicle on the ferry, got up there, and it was like a 2 mile hike down to the rapids, and yeah, it was just so fun. Yeah, I I can't I can't even describe how cool that was. Just to see it, I got a picture of my bike on the back of the ferry with the beautiful Sunshine Coast in the background of BC, and yeah, it's just magical. Those type of things.
And one reason you went there was because you had been there before and you knew that it was a really
No,
cool place. No?
no, I did a lot of sea kayaking, and so one of the things that Skookumchuck Rapids is famous for is there's this big standing wave in the middle of it, and so sea kayakers will go and surf the wave because I mean the water's going through there at 25 knots, and so I'd always watch YouTube videos about it, and I'd never been up there, and now of course when I went up there it was slack water, and so there was nothing happening, but just being able to go up there, it was pretty cool, and then getting to go over to Vancouver Island and ride all the way up to the north end there.
Well,
Pretty cool stuff.
bonus selection is kind of an interesting topic. The top riders are selecting their bonuses based upon points per mile and
Hmm.
what bonuses will get them closer to actually being on the podium. But there are a lot of riders who recognize before the start they're never going to be on the podium.
Yeah.
Their challenges are more personal. And so their bonus selection criteria differs substantially from the top riders. In 99, there were bonuses in New York City or the New York City area. And Joe Denton and I were riding together, and I said, why should we go to that bonus? And he says, Never been to New York before. So, there's that. My favorite story, though, is of the late Dick Fish, who was an amazing rider. He probably went from dead horse to uh, Ushuaia faster than anybody else on a motorcycle ever. He was a Canadian trials, or not trials rider, but an off-road rider.
Mm.
He built and ran dragsters. He was amazing. And he got it into his head one time that in the next Iron Butt rally, which he was going to be in, there was going to be a bonus in Goose Bay, Labrador. Now, getting to Goose Bay is sort of like getting to Dead Horse, Alaska. It's a few hundred miles of gravel road to get up there. So this would be, let's say, challenging for even a good road rider.
Yeah.
So the summer before the Iron Butt rally, Dick decided to take his motorcycle up to Goose Bay just to check it out. So he does. He goes up, he comes back. Now he's in the Iron Butt rally. And it was either on the first or second leg. Goose Bay was, in fact, a bonus. And I think it was on the second leg because in the riders' meeting where they handed out the second leg bonus pack, he saw it, shot to his feet, threw an arm up in the air, and said, "Yes!" What he didn't
Oh,
know was that he had been talking about Goose Bay on this private forum, and the rally master had put it in there just for Dick, but it wasn't the winning route.
I was like 1 point or something.
It wasn't quite that obvious, but Dick had gotten it into his head that this was going to be a winner, even regardless of what the rally book was saying. He was going up there hell or high water. It didn't matter.
That's great. So
So there
what,
are a
what
few head games that go on.
yeah. One last question I wanted to ask you. What is your avatar in the Iron Butt Rally forums? Because it seems to me that it's a very distinctive avatar, and you seem to use it everywhere. Everywhere I see your name and there's a picture associated, it's that picture. You want to describe what it is first of all, and why you use that one?
Well, for you youngsters out there, that is Howdy Doody
Okay.
from the Howdy Doody show. I was a big Howdy Doody fan when I was a kid, and that's Howdy.
Well, Ira, on this podcast, we ask each guest the same series of 12 questions. We call them the LD Dozen. You ready to go?
Hit it.
All right. What was your first motorcycle and why?
The first motorcycle that I was on was a Honda Trail 90, and it was a friend of mine had a couple of them, and we used to bang those suckers through the woods a lot. And if you ever see a Honda Trail 90 today at a show or for sale, it's a miracle because I think everybody just pounded the living hell out of those bikes. And the fact that there are any still in existence is just amazing. The first motorcycle that I actually bought was a 1968 250cc two-stroke Jawa, which is a Czechoslovakian
I
bike.
say, where is that from?
Well, back when AJS and Penton were the big off-road bikes, Jawa also made off-road, competitive bikes. This was a street bike. Like I say, it was 250cc. It was a two-stroke. They're not so sophisticated, so you poured the two-stroke oil directly into the gas tank. The interesting thing about the bike was that the Kickstarter and shift lever were on the left, and they were one and the same. So
How does that work?
really, to kickstart it, you pressed in on the uh,
Okay.
end, and that unlocked it, and the Kickstarter or the shift lever
Flipped it up. Yeah.
rotated back. You kicked it over, and then it
Huh.
rotated forward and locked, and then it was up for first.
Oh. Okay.
Pretty weird. Now, at the
Yeah.
same time, I had been riding a 650 Triumph Bonneville. Triumph Bonneville had a shift on the right side down for first. So
You
switching
got no
between the
muscle
two
memory.
bikes, yeah, when you shift and you think you're shifting up and you're shifting down, it can be a real
Yeah.
surprise. It was a
It's funny you.
total worthless piece of manure,
Yeah.
but I think I paid, $150 for it or something
Yeah.
like that. So, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the Honda Trail 90. So it was just earlier this week watching this YouTube channel of this guy who basically gets old things, old engines, and gets them running again. And he had a Honda Trail 90. The thing, he pulled it out of, it had been sitting in a barn for 30 years, hadn't been started. Put a little bit of oil in the cylinder just to lubricate the cylinder up a little bit. Put some gas in it, started right up. And I would imagine that the reason why the Honda Trail 90s don't exist is not because of the engine, but because of the body on them. But I bet you most of those engines still start right up. The things would just seem to be rock solid.
Also, you meet the nicest people on a Honda.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though I've been riding BMWs pretty much my whole life.
All right, so question number 2: where did you take your first overnight ride?
It was from New York City to outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. It was me and my girlfriend on that Jawa, two up, going to visit her parents for Thanksgiving one year. I think it was just over 100 miles one way.
Wow.
Of course, halfway there, my girlfriend realized that she had forgotten something important. So we had to turn around and go back, get it,
Yeah.
and then go to her parents' place. So, yeah, that was
Ironic.
the first overnight.
Incidentally, that could have been like the anniversary of that ride. Could have been right around right now, because
Yeah.
very likely. Could be even today. Um, all right, question number 3: what is your day job? What pays or paid for your LD writing habit?
Well, I've been retired for 15 years, but before that, I was in the scientific computing business. I worked at
Hmm.
the Los Alamos National Laboratory for 33 years.
Wow, very cool. So, can I ask you what you did, or is that all like classified and top secret?
Well, I was in the scientific computing area. I could tell you more, but then you know what happens.
Yeah,
That'd
yeah.
kill you.
I think that's the answer right there. Is that you can't tell me much more. All right. Question number 4: what is your favorite non-motorcycling hobby?
Oh, gee, I do a lot of that. Um, I guess crossword puzzles, maybe. I
Hmm.
like doing lots of crossword puzzles. Um, Cooking, like to cook
Hmm.
and bake, do a lot of that.
Nice.
Those are basically the things that keep me interested.
I guarantee it's the first time someone said crossword puzzles, and it may be the first time somebody says cooking. I'm not sure, but those may be two firsts you've got there. All right, question number 5: what is your favorite road? I imagine you've got
Boy,
quite a few of them around where you live.
there are a huge number around here, but if you've been riding for 50 some years, you've run into a lot
Yeah.
of them. In the local area, I'm in the Santa Fe, New Mexico area. Just north of me is the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and there are a series of roads called the Enchanted Circle. The Sangre de Cristo Mountains are the southern end of the Rocky Mountains and go up to 13,000 feet basically. And just riding through the national forests up there, up through Truchas and um, Angel Fire and Red River is just an absolutely beautiful ride. Um, US 190 used to be called US 666,
Hmm.
just on into Arizona, is also just a wonderful road. It's 90 miles through the forest. 50 miles of it is basically first and second gear twisties, and the other 40 miles are big sweepers. So that's just a beautiful road. US 50, but not in Nevada, going across Utah. There's around
Yeah.
100 miles of road that is straight and flat, and there's just nothing there at all. Um, and it's so just wonderful to be out in the middle of the desert. There was also a really wonderful road in Namibia that cut through the Kalahari Desert where we had to slow down because we didn't have enough gas to make it between gas pumps. So we had to slow it down to under 100 just to make the next gas station in the middle of the Cara.
Kilometers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah, right, kilometers. Um,
Important distinction.
well, we were, really going. Uh, and in the middle of that road, there was a police officer on the side of the road. And we kind of whizzed past him as he was encouraging us to go faster. Which,
It's awesome. All right. On the flip side of that, what is your least favorite road? I'm going to go with I-40.
well, I know every crack and pothole on I-40, so yeah, but I think maybe the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Hmm? How
That's
come the
pretty
Pennsylvania Turnpike specifically?
well. The last time I rode it, you couldn't avoid the potholes.
Oh, okay.
Just really, really, really rough riding.
All right. When you're planning out a ride, you use base camp, streets, trips, paper maps, or you just point the bike and go.
I pretty much point the pike and go. I might look at Google Maps before I go, but um, nowadays I see a lot of people on the Iron Bud forum who, for a Saddle Sore 1000, plan every gas stop, and I've just never been that kind of person. It's fun to wake up in the morning and just go in whatever direction the front wheel is pointing.
Yeah. All right. Question number 8. If you get a new motorcycle tomorrow, what's the first farkle you're going to put on it?
A ram mount,
Hmm.
a ram mount and a GPS.
Nice. I think that's also the first incident. It's kind of weird because you would think that would be a more popular choice, but I don't think anyone's ever actually said the RAM mount, which a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'll put a GPS on it," but they always forget what are you going to mount the GPS to?
I
And
love ram mounts. I use them on
yeah,
all my motorcycles, my exercise bikes, you name it. In fact, my iPad is sitting in a ram mount right now.
right now.
So, yeah, so
Yeah.
I think ram mounts and Russell saddles are the things that I equip basically all my bikes with, including my KLR 650.
Oh, you have a KLR 6. Oh, that's awesome. That was my first motorcycle.
That's my newest motorcycle. I own three motorcycles right now. I have the KLR 650, which is a 2002 model. That's my
Oh,
newest
nice.
motorcycle.
Yeah.
My other two motorcycles are a 1991 K75. I'm like Bob Higdon. I really love K75s, or the old ones at least.
Yeah.
And I also have a 1967 BMW R50/2 that has been completely rebuilt,
Huh.
which is just kind of a fun bike for a nice summer weekend.
Well, you transitioned right into the next question, which is what is your current bikes and why? So I want to go back to what is it about KLR 650 that you like?
It's the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles.
Yeah.
Um, I use it around town. I have a cheap JC Whitney top case for it. I've also ridden it in Mexico and up in Canada. So, it doesn't do anything particularly well, but it
Hmm.
does everything exception
Yeah,
or
that's
acceptably well. So
yeah.
yeah, so
That
I think among those three bikes, the KLR, the K75, that's my cross country bike basically, and the R50 just for fun
yeah.
afternoons out in the mountains. I have all the kind of riding I like to do pretty much covered.
That's one of my like my secret desires is to do the Iron Butt Rally on a KLR 650.
It's
And
been done.
yeah, it was one guy back in, gosh, it was like the early 2000s, wasn't it? It was
It's a
done.
very capable motorcycle.
Yeah.
Again, if in the modern era of the Iron Butt Rally, it's the thinking that gets you to the
Yeah.
finish.
Well, it
Then a
was my
KLR
first bike.
650 is fine.
Yeah, it was my first bike, and it's just like, how cool would that be just to do that? Like, if I could somehow find my first bike again, which I still kick myself for selling that thing, but uh, find that bike, and I had an '07. Yeah, no, it was '06. '06. Um, and I'd gone up a sprocket or up a tooth on the front sprocket. I'd put the bigger windshield on the front.
Right.
I mean,
Corrected
converted
the
all the
doohickey. Yeah.
yeah, the doohickey had been done already, but the supposedly, but I'd done LEDs on all the dash instruments and on the tail light, so it didn't pulse at stoplights, and so it's like, and then I bought a R 1200 GS and needed the money to buy that from the KLR. So, but yeah, little trip
Yeah.
down Justin's memory lane there.
Well, regrets. The first
Hmm.
BMW I bought was a 1970 R60/5. And I had wanted a BMW ever since Chuck and I jumped on his dad's R69S. But this was the first time I could afford a used one. But after maybe a few months, I decided this isn't a real BMW. It had plastic fenders. It had electric start, you know, things like this. It just wasn't a BMW. So I ended up selling the 1970 and I bought a 1968 R60/2. And that's the bike that I rode a lot and basically traded it for an 88 R100 when I decided I wanted to get into longer distance riding without having to, you know, do a lot of mechanical work on the side of the
Yeah.
road.
Well, we already covered the next question too, I think. But who made your seat? I'm guessing it's the Kawasaki made it on the KLR, but who made the other seats?
Well, Russell Saddle Products.
Yeah.
I've had them on every bike I've owned, except for the R50/2. I have a Denfeld solo saddle on that one. But I just, everybody has a different shaped butt, and I have a
Yeah.
Russell butt.
Same here. All right. Question number 11. What is your favorite or your most interesting location you've visited on your motorcycle?
Wow. Um, Maybe Sani Pass and Lesotho in Africa.
Hmm.
I spent a month riding in Africa with Ron Ayers and a few other guys before Ron started his touring business. Ron had been the president of EDS Africa and was living in Johannesburg at the time. I had hooked him up with a South African rider that I knew from the BMW MOA, and they really hit it off. And he decided he wanted to take more of a grand tour of 6 or 7 of the countries in southern Africa right after he retired. And so he retired one day, and the next day, about a half a dozen of us hit the road and
Oh,
went
cool.
through 6 or 7 countries in southern Africa. One of those countries is Lesotho. Lesotho is an interesting country for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's completely surrounded by South Africa.
Yeah.
Number two, if you can follow this, it's the country in the world with its low point being the highest point in the world. In other words, it has the highest low point of any
Oh,
country
I
in the
got you.
world, right? It's called the Kingdom in the Clouds. And the road up to Sani Pass, where there's the Sani Pass Chalet where we spent the night, used to be part of the top of the world rally. Um, Dirt, lots of switchbacks, but spectacular views. And so being at Sani Pass, way up in the mountains in Lesotho, was just spectacular. It was wonderful.
Wow. That sounds pretty cool. Wow. All right, question number 12. How do you pass the time on a long ride? You listen to music, audiobooks, just watch the flowers go by?
It's an interesting question for a lot of reasons. I like listening to my engine
Hmm.
and just, I don't uh, listen to radios or CV traffic or anything else. I just like going down the road, listening to my engine and smelling the smells and seeing the sights and just thinking. One of the things that's always fascinated me about the Iron Butt Association community is that although everybody seems to come from different walks of life, we've had brain surgeons, we've had flight attendants, airline pilots, ditch diggers, lawyers. It doesn't really matter what their background is. They all seem to have something in common. And it took me a while to figure out exactly what that was. And what I concluded was that most of the people just really like themselves. And I think you have to in order to do the kind of riding that we do, because there's nobody else inside your helmet except yourself. And if you're going down the road just always tied in a knot, just angry at the world, you just can't do that kind of riding. I mean, you just
Yeah.
can't do it. And so I think most people who do a lot of long distance riding like themselves. They like their life. They're curious people. They're adventurous people. There are too many instances in everyday life nowadays where the outcome is a foregone conclusion. There's no real challenge to it. And the greatest challenge in long distance riding is not against the clock or the odometer, it's against yourself.
Yeah.
And so people who do this kind of riding typically like instances where the outcome is less than totally certain. Am I going to be able to ride 1,500 miles in 24 hours? That's really an unknown unless you're Greg Rice and you've done it 65 times.
I think he's up to 70 now.
Yeah, whatever. But for most people, these things are real challenges. And I think that for me, being able to challenge oneself and succeed is just the greatest thrill in the world.
Yeah.
And so being comfortable with yourself, liking yourself, being able to do long distances um, is essential um, to me at least. Or you can't do it. You just can't do it.
Well, Ira, I want to thank you. First of all, for coming on the show and talking to us. Second, I want to thank you for everything you've done, all the volunteer work basically that you've done over the past umpteen years to make lots of people's dreams come true, including my own. It's I don't think I can. I'll speak for everyone to thank you for that because I mean, without volunteers like you, things like the Iron Butt Rally just aren't going to happen. And so thank you very much for that. I also want to thank you for a third thing, and that is specifically I was trying to. It was a couple episodes, about a year ago, I think, or maybe even 2 years ago. I was trying to find the lowest number Iron Butt Rally number I could find to interview, and Ira helped me helped me get hooked up with George Sweatland, and that was just a hoot, that interview. I really enjoyed talking with him, and so I want to thank you for that as well. And,
yeah. IBA number 5.
5, yeah. He was a gosh, just a firecracker of a guy. So thank you for everything you've done. And with that, anything else you want to talk about before I let you go?
Well, just like I say, it's given me a lot of pleasure over the years to be in the Iron Butt Association, and I'm very happy to give back to it. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, that's Ira Agins. Thanks for coming on Long Riders Radio.
My pleasure.
Well, if you'd like to get in contact with me, there's lots of ways you can do it. Easiest way is to head over to that website, www.longridersradio.com. And as always, we need to thank the folks over at DiscountRamps.com. DiscountRamps.com offers a huge selection of power sports products for your ATV, UTV, motorcycle, and more. Long Riders Radio listeners can save 15% on their order by using coupon code LONG. That's LONG at DiscountRamps.com. And as always, we need to thank this show's founder, Mr. Michael Cox. You know, I was talking to Mike the other day, and I admit I called him a little bit early, but he seemed really extra grumpy, more grumpy than he normally is. And I said, Mike, what's going on? And he said,
Mike likes to sleep in.
Ride safe, everyone.